So my name's Kim Maynard. I rookied in 1982 in Missoula, and I had been fighting fires since 1977. Before that, BLM Manned Forest Service and Hotshot Crew, Bitterroot Hotshot Crew, and then jumped for another 9 years. And then I left smoke jumping to go into international natural disasters, and then eventually I got into international wars. So that's kind of my history. And moved back to Montana about 8 years ago from being overseas most of my career, so that was great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what comes to mind is a story of a jump that I did with Gino Bissett. And Gino Bissett and I seem to track on the list. You have a smoke jumper list, and you jump, according to fires off the top of the list. And he and I for years would just always jump fires together. I don't know why, but pretty much my career was a lot of Gino Bissett stories. So, big guy, 200-pounder, me, 120 at the time. And so I always jumped second out the door. We were boosted North Cascades Smoke Jumper Base, and they were just running people out. As soon as you get there, you're fire after fire after fire. You get back, you clean up a little bit, you go back on another fire. So we were really tired, but it was awesome, and it's gorgeous country. And so one night they said, okay, we got fires first thing in the morning. It's going to be a garbage load, which means that a bunch of small fires, and everybody in the plane, usually it's two-manners. So if they have 12 people in the plane, it's 6 two-manners. You put 2 out on the fire, then you drop cargo to them, then you go to another fire, put 2 out, drop cargo, and so forth. We're in the back of the plane. So we're the last of this garbage load. Beautiful little fire, way up high. And we jumped, and Gino had to go to the bathroom after all this time flying around. So he gave me the radio, and we, put out the fire. And after we got down to the ground, he went off to go to the bathroom, and I went and looked at the fire, see what we needed in terms of any extra gear or anything. And there was a bunch of just downfall. So I asked for a crosscut saw, and which means, I called on the radio, and the radio didn't work. And nobody's answering. And I said, we're okay. That's what you do. You tell them, you're okay. And nobody answered. And I tried again, pulled out a new battery, put the battery in, tried again, no answer. So radio's not working. So I put out a big L, which means you're okay, 2 L's, that means you're both okay. Put out a big R, meaning I needed a radio, and an S for a crosscut saw. So the plane flies away. Okay, so we go out to the fire, start working on the fire, and just a tiny little thing. It was beautiful. And a little while later, the plane flies back and doesn't drop us a radio, drops us a battery. Well, I already knew that the battery wasn't the issue, so we didn't have a radio. But no big deal. That we had agreed that a helicopter was going to come pick us up the next day. There was a little landing spot. It was nice. No big deal. So, we didn't think too much about it. And they also dropped us a chainsaw instead of a crosscut saw. So, okay, we have this heavy chainsaw. We put out the fires, have a nice little campfire, eat our food, and go to bed. Next morning, wake up, and we have hooches. So back then it was just tarps, so no tents. And I looked out and I went, what on earth? I looked out and it was just foggy, just dense fog. You couldn't see 3 feet. It was so socked in. It was September. So I said, helicopter's definitely not coming. So no big deal. We were exhausted from all this jumping. This is great. So we hung out in our little tents and our little hooches and read and kind of went for a little hike later, but it was really dense fog, no big deal. Everything was soaking wet now. And we had laid out our parachutes. We hadn't picked them up when we jumped, we just left them out and should have, but now they're soaked with this moisture. And we have this chainsaw, so we have a lot of weight. In other words, this all adds up to a lot of weight. And knowing that if we were to hike out it was going to be a really heavy, really long 30-mile pack out. So we were going, oh, I don't know. So we just thought, we'll just stay another day. Went to bed that night. Woke up the next morning, same thing. It was just so dense. We heard a helicopter come, try to find us, but they couldn't find us. So we, whatever. I put out my orange tarp and trying to get them to see if but they couldn't land. So anyway, so we stayed there. I think 2 more nights, but we were running out of food. In Missoula, you pack more food into a firebox than in NCSB, where it's a day and a half, I think, is food back then anyway. And so we were running out of food. I said, we got to go. We got to make a decision, and we got to go. So the next morning, so we planned it out. The next morning, we're going to get up and just hike out, leave the saw, leave our gear, wrap it in my orange tarp so that we could see it from above, and hike out. So we start hiking. And Gino, 200-pounder, about, I don't know, maybe 10 miles in, starts getting not hypoglycemic, but maybe hypoglycemic, but anyway, he's hitting the wall. Didn't have enough food in him. I think I had a granola bar left. I gave that to him, but he's starting to really slow down. And I'm getting worried. And everything's wet. It's chilly because everything's wet and dewy and everything. Thankfully, we ran into a pack string that was coming up the trail. We stepped off and we asked him, how far is it? And he says, it's a good, 15 miles yet, out. And all we were getting to was a parking lot. And no necessarily any other vehicles or anything. We didn't know what we were going to get to, but it was at least out. It was on the Pacific Crest Trail. It was gorgeous. And he said, but I'll tell you what, there's a little spur that you can take, a little off-trail thing that you can do, and that'll cut you off a few miles. So we're going, and Gino's just hardly moving. And he had been reading this kind of a sassy book. And I knew it because when we were hanging out those few days, he'd yell out, Maynard, check out this passage. And then he'd read me something really naughty, and I'd go, Gino, okay. So as he's slowing down, I start saying, so Gino, tell me more about the book. Anything to get him going, because I'm thinking, how am I going to pack out a 200-pounder over my shoulder? This is really not going to be fun. So we are continuing, and we took this shortcut and cut off. So I think it was a 34-mile pack out, and we ended up doing 30 or 31 or something. The last 2 miles was this slate, this switchbacking up this slate into this cold, dark, we didn't know what was up at the top, but it was windy and it was cold and everything. And so I'm going up, and Gino said, Maynard, you got to come back and get me. Maynard, I can't make it. I'm thinking, oh, geez, what am I going to do? I get up to the top, and it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen Macbeth, but this wind is blowing, and there's this dew, and then all of a sudden there's sort of a mirage of something out there, and then the wind and the fog, and I'm going, what on earth? Absolutely no cars. No way that we were getting a ride anytime soon. But out of this, I saw this lookout, and I went, there's a lookout there. So about this time, Gino comes up, and he's, just goes like this, and he just sits down. Now he's really tired and really depressed because there's nothing there. And I said, Gino, did you bring your Forest Service key? He gives it to me. I go over to the lookout. It's like a few hundred yards away. Open it up, and at least it's shelter. And so Gino comes over. He goes up the stairs. Have you ever been to a lookout? It's a long ways up the stairs. Gets up to the top of the stairs, puts his feet up on the alley. There's a little bench, a bed, a single bed with nothing but a sheet. So no blankets, no warmth, no food, no water. We were out of water as well. Nothing. But it was inside anyway. But it was cold in there. So he lies down, puts his feet up on the alidade. I cover him with a sheet like he was dead. And he just starts snoozing. And I start looking around going, we got to do something. This is not going to work for very long because we were soaking wet. So I went down, looked around. There's a couple of outbuildings, a couple of outbuildings. I'm looking for food in particular. There's got to be some MREs or something. Back then they were they MREs? Anyway, this was probably about 1987 or something. And I didn't find anything, and I didn't find water, I didn't find blankets, I didn't find anything. But I did open up, and there was a repeater there. It's this big thing. It was looked like probably the old style computers, and I flipped the on switch. Things light up. I go, and there's a mic there, and so grab the mic and punch something, and I go, and it says Slate Mountain Lookout. So I said, anybody, this is Slate Mountain Lookout. Nothing. I went, oh no. And I punched a couple more buttons, and I said, anybody, this is Slate Mountain Lookout. And then Bill Meadows, who was the Missoula foreman who'd led our Missoulians over to the NCSB for the booster, gets on there, he goes, Maynard, is that you? I go, yeah, Meadows. I said, we're up here at Slate Mountain Lookout. We need a ride badly. We need to get out of here. He said, we were just about to send a search party out. And I said, okay, well, we're here. Come and get us. So it was 30 miles, because we were thinking, there we were. It was at 30 miles from where we had started, and another 30 miles to the jump base, down a road. But, we didn't know if there was going to be any cars, so, we'd be hiking another 30 miles. So anyway, they sent up a car. They took us back, and we got to stay in a hotel. We didn't have to go into the bunkhouse. They gave us this huge buffet food, as much as you could eat in a restaurant. We were going, whoa, this is pretty good. And on the side, Gino said, the one thing is I wish we had zipped our sleeping bags together so when they came and picked them up, they would have gotten a big surprise.